Welcome, everybody, to Talk Time Life Unscripted. I'm your host, Ken, and I'm here along with my co host, Kisha. And we are especially honored to have Khari D join us today. Khari recently published a very powerful three-part ebook on LinkedIn titled The Fear of Success. And trust me, this one is really worth talking about. We're going to dive into it and explore what success really means and why so many of us are afraid of achieving it. Now, for those of you who don't know, Khari is a senior executive with deep expertise in leadership, business development, and business transformation. He's Six Sigma certified and widely known for helping organizations scale through strategic thinking and strong leadership. Before we get started, take a second to make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe. And please don't forget to hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any more of these real, unscripted conversations that matter. Now, let's go ahead and get into this kiki. So, before we get started about discussing your ebook, can you take a second and introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, no, thank you, Ken. I appreciate it, sir. Thank you for having me on. I'm really excited to talk to everybody today. As you mentioned, I'm Khary Brown, and I have done a lot of different things with throughout my career. And so this book really is just kind of a culmination of things that I have done. So I started out my career in radio way back when, and then kind of parlayed that into advertising, and then kind of parlayed that into financial services. And in between those times, went back to school and got an MBA, and then was able to be blessed enough recently to go back to school and go into seminary. And then most recently, I decided to go back again to get a doctorate. So I'm working on my doctorate right now. And so all of these things have kind of come together in different stages throughout my life. And as you see, this ebook really kind of talks a lot about some of the fears and doubts that may set in throughout the courses of people's careers and even through their personal lives. So this just really was a culmination of various parts of my life, and wanted to put something down on paper that might be able to help some people in some way or fashion. So.
I've been following you on LinkedIn for some time. And so, and when I saw you posted this ebook and I read through it, it really resonated with me. So
Thank you,
there were several key points that I could relate to. And it just was very powerful. And I was like, as soon as I read through it, I'm like, okay, Khary, you need to come on and talk about this because this is a very powerful message. So can you tell us a little bit about what motivated you to start to write this and publish this ebook?
Yeah, I will tell you, Ken, it really started because, one, I think it was kind of cathartic because this is something I think a lot of people can resonate and can agree that happens to them. So this is something that happened to me personally, but it also happened to someone that was really close to me. And so she was going through some things in her life, in her career, and she has all of the great attributes that anybody can have in terms of being super smart and articulate and all these wonderful things. But she just kept having this cloud come over her in terms of this self-doubt and am I good enough? And what happens if I get this job or what have you? And so I said, you know what? That's a real thing that a lot of people experience, myself included. And so I said, hey, let's write this stuff down that you're experiencing, that I'm experiencing, and let's figure out if there are some ways that we can not only identify some of the fears that people may have around success, but let's talk about some of those ways that we can counter that, and then also talk about some of the pitfalls that people may not even realize that they're falling into as they're trying to overcome some of the fears of having success in their lives.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why it resonated with me so much, and Lakeisha probably as well, is because we're going through that layoff journey together, and which is what motivated us to start this channel. And we had the same fears, the doubts about where our career was going, and am I going to find another job, and all of those things. And so, like I said, reading through that, every part of that resonated with me. So I'm very proud of you for writing that, and thank you again for coming on and sharing that with us.
Thanks for having me. I love this. This is fantastic, and I just appreciate you all having me on. This is amazing.
Khary, thanks so much for that. And this is so awesome. So let's really get into this ebook, The Fear of Success, Part One.
Mhm.
So, can you walk us through the key elements of Part One?
Sure. So, Kisha, there's really three parts within part one, but also the way that the series is structured. There's parts overall, parts one, two, and three, and then within each of those parts, there are three key points. And so, for the first part that we talk a little bit about is redefining the definition of your success. And so, I think what a lot of us do is we come in to an opportunity and we think that we have to be perfect and we have to come in and have everything lined up and the timing has to be right. And, I'm going to have beautiful, luscious hair and I'm going to be fit. I'm going to lose 10 pounds. And that time never happens. And so what I was hoping that people would resonate and understand is that you can't fall into that trap of perfectionism, waiting for the right time, waiting for the heavens and the earth to open up. And so what you have to do is really lean on the opportunity as it presents itself.
Yeah.
And realizing that, hey, there may not be a perfect time. I may not lose that 10 pounds. I may not be able to grow those beautiful locks. And so just do what the best that you can and recognize that and reevaluate what that means on your own terms. And so I'll give you an example. I have a friend of mine who said, "Hey, KB, I want you to help me out. I'm looking for an opportunity, and I think I'd be really good." And I said, "Absolutely, not a problem." And so I was able to set them up with an interview. They were actually able to meet with a small business owner, and everything was looking great. They had the resume down, and we helped. I helped practice and provide them with some coaching and some questions, and they didn't even show up to the interview.
Wow.
Wow.
The fear of success and going through that whole process was just overwhelming for them. They were just overwhelmed and overcame with anxiety.
Wow.
And because I thought something had happened. The business owner called me up and said, "Hey, KB, what happened to so and so? I thought they were coming to the interview today." And I was like, "They didn't show up?" And I was like, "No." So I called and I thought something had happened. And when I got a hold of this person, they were like, "Yeah, I just woke up and just didn't feel like I was worthy of the interview."
Wow.
And so that whole paralyzation is real. People get paralyzed with the fear of what was going to happen and going through the process. And so what I want people to recognize is that, one, you have to have grace. Just have grace on yourself. Give yourself grace and mercy. Recognize that, hey, everything is not going to be perfect. That's okay. But do the best you can with what you have. And so that's really what this part one is talking about, is redefining your own success. Part two is really around, looking at that self-sabotage. So again, kind of talking about that friend of mine who was really excited about this job opportunity, but then when it came down to it, this person wasn't even able to go to the interview. And that's where that self-sabotaging came in, because this person at the end of the day was really overqualified for this position. They could have gotten it, but the mindset started to set in terms of, "Oh, you're not ready for it. You can't do this. You're just not, you're not there. You're not ready yet." And so what I really was hoping, and in the second part of the first part of the series, was avoiding those conversations, avoiding those self-doubts that creep into your mind.
Yeah.
The mental aspect of being successful really starts with you. I think a lot of times we start thinking about, and I put it in a post recently, about how people are all going to laugh at you. And so the reality is, most people are not really involved or invested about your specific outcome or what you're doing. That's
Very
all
true.
part of our mental aptitude. And we're thinking, "Oh, Keisha's going to laugh at me. Ken's going to laugh at me. They're going to talk about me." The reality is that y'all not thinking about me. But even if you are, you're going to do it anyway. So I have no power over you to say, "Khary can't do this, Khary can't do that." So it all starts with me. It starts with my own mental mindset and making sure that I have the positive reinforcement, not the negative. Don't let the
Yeah,
negative.
I think that like what that was something that really resonated with me because I
Yeah,
remember, once I, going through my layoff journey, I had all of that self-doubt and
yeah,
had that
yeah.
self-sabotage in my
Sure.
head because I immediately started thinking, what am I going to do? Who's
Right.
going to hire me? Am I qualified enough? And then, part of this process looking for jobs, you
Sure.
send out resumes and you get interviews and then you get that rejection letter, and then that
Absolutely.
rejection letter then zeroes in on that self-sabotage because then you start feeling, oh wow, okay, rejection letter after rejection letter. It's kind of like, okay, what's wrong with me? Like, am I
Yeah.
not hireable? So I had to
Right.
pull myself out of that space and just understand that at that moment, even though I was applying for these jobs and not getting them,
Yeah.
it just meant that that job wasn't for me.
That's
So
right. And
yeah.
what happens is, like you're saying, Kim, when you start to get those rejection letters, or you don't get the job that you really really wanted, uh, it starts to cement and solidify in your mind. Like, okay,
Yeah,
see, I knew I wasn't going to get it because I wasn't qualified. And the reality
that
is,
part.
that job wasn't for you. And I don't want to get into a sermon, but what God has in store for you, nothing can come overcome that. And so when you see that job, that opening just doesn't happen, it wasn't meant for you. And
Absolutely.
I was telling a friend of mine recently that I remember in my career there was a job that I thought I wanted. I thought I was perfect for. And so one of my mentors at that time, he had set me up with an interview. I went in, I thought I nailed it. I thought I had it hands down. This job was mine. The only reason that I wouldn't have this job is because God wouldn't want me to have it. And oddly enough, after I had the interview, um, days turned into months, and I just didn't hear anything from anybody. And so I was like, well, dang, that's just odd. I kept calling, nobody would call me back. I was emailing, nobody emailed me back. And so about a month or two later, my mentor reached out to me and said, hey, KBS, want to let you know that job that you went out for, that whole team got laid off.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And so you talk about a blessing, because it wasn't a situation where I needed to have a job. I was fine with where I was. I just thought this job would just really align to my skill set. But sometimes those things that you want and what God has in store for you don't align. And I'm so thankful that throughout my life that God didn't bless me with everything that I wanted, because I did not need it. And
Right.
so some of those things that we want, those jobs that we go after, and things that we feel really down about because we didn't get them, that's okay, because that job was not for us. There'll
Absolutely.
be
Right.
other opportunities.
Just kind of piggybacking on what you just said. So one attribute to success, I would say or would think, is patience. So can you expound on that?
Oh, Kisha, yeah, absolutely. I am an advocate of praying for things that you don't have, right? And so there was a time in my life where I wanted everything right now. I need it right now, Lord. I need it right now. I can't wait till tomorrow. I gotta have it. And so what I realized throughout the course of my career was he wasn't giving it to me right then because I wasn't worthy, because I didn't have the patience. I didn't
That
have the
part.
patience
Yeah.
to recognize that throughout the struggle, some things that I needed to fix, some things that I needed to work on,
Yeah.
needed to happen before I was able to be blessed with another opportunity or another job. So to your point, Keisha, yeah, absolutely, patience is required. It is required to not only um, benefit you for blessings in the future, but also for those people that are around you. A lot of times we go through these things and we think it's just impacting me. But what happens is, as you're going through struggles, or you're going through opportunities, and you're going through blessings, people are looking at you to see, how is Keisha responding to this? How is Kenneth responding to a layoff? How are they able to be resilient through those times? And so part of that patience and waiting for what is going to happen and how it's going to manifest in the future, people are looking at you to see how you're responding. So that patience is required not only for you
Yeah.
because you need it, but it's also because people are looking at you to see how you're able to overcome those obstacles. And so, yeah, it's absolutely a requirement for the success, because
Yeah.
it's multi-leveled. It's not just you that is going to be the benefit, benefactor of it. It's also how people are observing you and seeing how you're able to have that resilience, that patience, and how you're able to overcome those
Yeah,
obstacles.
that's something I had to learn, and I think it's something I continue to learn is
Yeah,
having that
Absolutely.
patience because in everyday life, sometimes I'm like, "Oh, I want that. I need that now." And so I have to sit back and realize,
yeah.
"Okay, wait. Let's settle into this." And patience is a virtue, they say.
It
So
is. It is.
I've practiced that daily, and it's hard sometimes to do that.
It
So
is. Absolutely, it is. If it was easy, everybody would do it, everybody would have it, and then it would not be a virtue, like you said. And so it's one of those things that we all have to work on. And even when we think we've got it, there's more work to do.
Khary, when you closed out part one of the ebook, you gave us an amazing gem. Success isn't just about reaching the finish line, it's
Yeah.
about embracing the journey.
Yeah.
Can you speak on that?
Yeah, I think a lot of times, and this kind of goes back to that part of perfectionism, right? And we're thinking at the right time and everything's going to happen. Well, part of it is learning as you go, and I think at some point we all figure, okay, well, when I get to a certain point, I get to a certain age, I'm going to be happy. I'm going to have this kind of car. I'm going to have this kind of house. And it's really not about that end point. It's really about those things that you learn along the way, how you're able to help others, how others are perceiving you and your brand and what you bring to the table. That really says a lot about your journey. And I think a lot of times we get focused on that endpoint and thinking about what's going to look like on the other side when I'm done, or when I think that I've reached the pinnacle of success. And it's really not about that. It's about understanding where you are, being present, being there for other folks, and being able to enjoy the moments along the way. That's what really makes this whole
very true.
journey special for everybody. And everybody's journey is different. Everybody is
Good.
in a different space. And so it behooves all of us to recognize that, one, and then also to not take where we are for granted, but enjoy how we're getting there, how we're going to the next place, how we're navigating through the challenges and learning from them. So that's really what I was trying to touch base on and expound upon a little bit when I was talking about the journey piece, not the
Yeah.
destination. Yeah.
Yeah. So the third section of part one is about building that support team. So
Sure.
let's speak a little bit more on what that looks like.
Yeah, I think I learned early on that throughout your career, you will have folks that, if you're blessed enough, you'll have people that are not only mentors, but you also have folks that are advocates, and then you also have people that are sponsors. And so I'll explain a little bit about each of those. So a mentor is somebody that you can talk to that may have guidance for you, and they may not be somebody that you know very well. They may be somebody that you meet infrequently, but you can glean from them, and they can give you kind of a lay of the land and provide you with some insights and some feedback.
Yeah.
An advocate is somebody that will put you forth and say, hey, listen, Kisha is somebody that is deserving of this next title, someone that is deserving of this promotion, right? Somebody that is going to put you out there and have your back. Yeah. Now, a sponsor is somebody that is not only, and they can also be a mentor, and they can be an advocate for you, but they're a position of power and influence. So not only are they saying, Kisha and Ken, you all are deserving of this promotion, but we're going to do something about it. I'm going to make sure you get it. I'll put my reputation and influence on the line for you, and I believe that much in you. So those are the key three things that I've learned to come across in my career, and I think all three of those are vital in your career development.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because, when we talked before about our support system, we were always like, lean in on your family and your friends,
Yeah.
and surround yourself with, those people who can help encourage you. But
Yeah.
that perspective of mentors and advocates, that's a very different way of looking at it. And it's something that certainly we can take away and make sure that as we are continuing this journey, that we're taking advantage of that support system as well. So yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And this also encompasses your family too. People that have got your back that you can lean on and say, hey, honey, I had a rough day, I just feel like giving up. And, they dust you off and say, no, you need to go, get back up and go for more.
Yep.
And, this support system, I actually had a conversation with one of my mentors yesterday. Every time I talk to him, we never have an agenda. That's the first thing. It's just, how you doing? What's going on? And we just vibe for 30 minutes on whatever's on our minds, whatever's happening in our world. And he was telling me, he's like, Khary, I'm in the midst of something right now organizationally, and I'm, really challenged with making some really tough, difficult decisions. And he says, I love it. This is a part of my job that I absolutely love. And I said, well, and I was kind of taken aback. I was like, you like making the hard decisions? Why is that? And I asked myself, so why? And he says, I love it because it allows me to focus on every aspect of a leader that I have built upon up until this point in my career. Every little thing that I have learned, every little nuance, every little nugget, every little gem has an influence and an impact and allows me to leverage that in my decision making. It's not an easy process, but he says, I love looking at the minutia where other people will go back and say, we'll look at this later. He says, I love looking at that because it allows me to leverage that leadership skill that people don't necessarily want to gravitate towards, or they don't feel comfortable in exploring. And he says that differentiates me from all the other leaders. This skill set allows me to be a difference maker. And I said, so then I had a follow-up question. I know we may be getting off the topic a little bit.
No, we're good.
Continue. So I had a follow-up question. And so I asked him, I said, so how does your spirituality guide you with those kind of difficult decisions? And without a hesitation, he says, 100%. He says, what I love about doing that and leveraging what I've learned in my spirituality and reading the Bible and so on and so forth is that I have everything I need right here.
Absolutely.
I'm already equipped to make these decisions. Other folks that are non-believers, they don't have that. They flounder and go back and forth and don't understand how they could possibly come up with a decision. I have everything I need. So he said, well, KB, I absolutely use my spirituality in 100% of what I decide in those decisions that I need to make.
Yeah, that's the key. That's very powerful. Yeah, very, very, very powerful point. Yeah.
That's amazing. So I lost my notes. Sorry. Get so into the conversation.
It's all good.
That's all right. Tell a joke or something, Kisha. All good.
Right. So let's get into part 2. You have, you said before that each section has key points that you like to bring out about what you're speaking on. So the first one, embracing vulnerability as a strength. Let's get into that one.
Yeah. As we started to go into the second part of the series, I was thinking about how can I enhance what we did, make it a little different, but also build upon what we had. And so as you all will see, and what you have seen already in part 2 was not only were we talking about issues that people were having, but and talking about how we can, avoid those pitfalls. In part 2, I started to put together and provide some life hacks on how to overcome it. So for example, this first one, we talk about vulnerability. And I think vulnerability needs to come from a place of authenticity. So you can't be vulnerable trying to fake vulnerability. You got to be real with your vulnerability, right? So an example of this is I know a manager who at the drop of a hat will just cry. And I'm not saying that his emotions are, disingenuous, but what I'm saying is that this person, it could be any old thing and a tear will come up. And so what I want people to recognize is that the place of vulnerability is good, but it's got to come from a place that is genuine. And I think when people recognize that your vulnerability is a strength and not a weakness, that's a good thing. And so I think people need to understand, you can put this into practice. And one of the hacks that I talk about is, take some time out every day and think about something that you're being very honest about, and yet you may be very uncomfortable about. So I'll give you an example. I Early in my career, I used to do a lot of marketing, but I was very uncomfortable with leveraging data points and leveraging numbers. And so I went to a manager one day. I said, I'm good at telling the story, but leveraging the data, I'm just not very good at. I don't know how to incorporate that. And so we started to have one-on-one sessions about, let's talk about how we can get better, get you more comfortable with the data. This is what this represents. This is what, T scores are. This is what P values mean. This is standard deviation, all that statistical stuff that I had not a clue what it meant, but I got more comfortable with it. And so I started to become kind of like that subject matter expert on, statistical analysis, and being able to incorporate those numbers into what the data was telling me, and how to be able to expound on what those numbers represent, what they meant. And so you can turn that vulnerability into a strength, but you got to identify what that means and what you need work on first.
Mm.
Yeah, very interesting. Very, very
Great
interesting.
point. Great point. Okay. Developing a resilient mindset.
Mm-hmm. This one, Kisha, was about what we call failures and what we consider failures. There are things in through our lives that we're just not going to be successful at. That's just the name of the game. We're not going to be good at everything we do. But I think, coming out of that on the other side is, what can you learn from it? And how can you apply those learnings to your benefit and to your experience going forward, right? And so if you have an instance where you are not successful in something, how can you learn from it? You're going to make mistakes. That's going to happen. But my mantra was growing up and having a career early on was, I don't want to make the same mistake. And so being able to bounce back from a mistake that I have made and saying, okay, how could I have done that better? How could I have done that differently? And then also getting coaching from other people from the outside on, hey, this is where I kind of screwed up. How would you do things differently? Yeah. How would you go about doing that? What did I miss? And so having that self-evaluation and self-assessment and talking about how you can do better the next time is all about resilience and being able to put that into practice. I think a lot of times if we make a mistake, we want to just kind of poo-poo that away and shove that on the side and act like it didn't happen.
Yeah.
And so I think the reality is, you're going to make mistakes, but to make the best out of it is readdressing it and saying, hey, I got this, if this happens again, how am I going to readdress this the next time? So that's a part of that resilience and having that mindset of, I want to be able to brush that off, but I want to avoid that from happening again in the future.
The
finding
cliche
that
is that
teachable moment. I'm sorry.
yeah, it's a very teachable moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the cliche there is that we sometimes get caught up in that and realize that just because you make a mistake doesn't define who you are meant to be. It doesn't define your next part of the journey. We have to make sure that we recognize that and just remember to do better. I mean, I make mistakes all the time, and when I do, I'm like, oh, it's like,
well, we don't like making mistakes.
Why did I do that?
Right.
Then the cliche there is lessons learned the hard way.
That's exactly right.
And it's what you do with that mistake when you make it. You can either, like you said, brush it away and pretend that it didn't exist, but then you set yourself up to continue and make that same mistake. And the key there is to recognize, that mistake and let that settle in with you.
Yes.
And think about how you're going to improve and achieve and grow from that mistake. And I think that that's something that's part of everyday life journey, because we are all going to make mistakes. We're going to continue to make mistakes, but it's what you do with them.
That's right.
Yeah,
absolutely right.
Okay, so now let's talk about core values, aligning success with your core values. Let's talk about that one.
Yeah, I think what we need to figure out, as we're going through our journeys, and this is, career-wise or personal, what have you, is identifying what's important important to you, and things that you're just going to adhere to. And there are just certain things that are just non-starters. People oftentimes will say, "Hey, I'll give this up if so and so does this, or I'll make a sacrifice, or I'll make an exception." And certain things are just, I don't want to say the word sacred, but things that you just can't give up. And I'll give you an example. I remember I was working with a group of folks on a project, and some of them it was a mix of internal people and external people. And the external one said, "Hey, before we get started, you all mind if we had a word of prayer?" And that wasn't in Sunday school. This wasn't in Bible study. This was right before a business meeting. And I was like, "Yeah, that sounds great." But I could tell that there were other people that were a part of the discussion that just didn't sit well with them. And I get that. But part of this group, this was part of their core values. This was a non-starter. We were not going to start this meeting without having a word of prayer, regardless if you were a believer or not. Now, if you didn't want to participate, that you can excuse yourself and then come back when we were done. But they said, "Hey, absolutely, we're going to have this word." And I admired what their courage was, because that was something that was important to them. And even though it was a business setting. So I think we all have to figure out what are those things that are important to us that we're just not going to shy away from. And, regardless of what the outcome may be, I have to identify what that means for you, and how you want to go about living your life and throughout your career as well.
Yeah, I think the quote on that one you said was, "Success isn't a fixed destination.
No.
It's a dynamic journey that evolves with you." So, that aligning your core values and being true to who you are, I think, is a key point there. So,
absolutely.
I think, that authenticity.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's it.
Awesome. Okay. So, part 3 of the series.
Yes, ma'am.
Understanding fear in the context of success. Oh.
Yeah, I mean, this one is, as we talked about before, this one is the kind of like the pinnacle in being able to round out the series. And so what I wanted to do is, in part 3, was just kind of frame everything back together. We talked about 1 and we talked about 2, but also figure out, as this culmination comes together, where do we go from here? And so, embracing that imperfection and learning from that failure is very similar to what we talked about before. But the difference in the nuance here is that failure is just one of the greatest teachers. It is, we talked about not learning from it, just kind of brushing it to the side, but being able to be in a position to say, "Hey, I really want to learn from this," and cultivate an environment where the data points help guide me through this process. And so I know now, as a frame of reference, because I have quote unquote failed before, I know what that feels like. And more importantly, I know some of those pitfalls and things to avoid going forward. So it really kind of builds upon that last point of part 2, but it frames it up a little bit more differently and gives you a little bit more context to say, I know what I've done. I know what it felt like. I know how I really went down, but how can I build myself back up and overcome some of that? And here's some tips on how you can do that.
Yeah. Very key point there.
Mm-hmm.
Embrace imperfection and learn from failure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a lot of that is just just kind of not dwelling on that point of failure so much, right? And I think sometimes we can feel like, oh man, I just don't want to go there, and you internalize it so much, and it almost comes to a point of paralysis. You're afraid to move, you don't want to do anything, and it's like depression. It can be debilitating. And so what I want folks to learn from this is, don't let that slow you down. Obviously, it's going to take some time sometimes to figure out, hey, this is where I messed up, but don't let that hold you back. Allow your time to give yourself grace, like we talked about before, but come back, dust yourself off, eternalize it for a brief moment of time, and then say, okay, I got to turn the page. Let's go. And this is what I learned from it. Let's keep it moving.
Yeah.
Okay. So this next one, it's very interesting because you see a lot of this in a lot of organizational culture, balance to prevent burnout. So specifically kind of like that work-life balance. Let's
Yeah.
talk about that.
Yeah, and there's a lot of debates on, work-life balance, and I think there's a lot of people that kind of opine if that exists. I remember there was someone recently who said, that's not on the organization to find your work-life balance. And there was a lot of pushback on that. So that's not. I'm not going to get into that debate. But what I will say is this: I think self-care is important. I think for people that are leaders, you need to recognize the signs where you are struggling. I remember there was a personal tragedy in my life that happened, and I was trying to uh, ignore it. I was trying to ignore the signals. I was trying to be the perfect dad, be the perfect husband, all realizing that I was just crumbling on the inside. And so I recognized that I was just in constant pain, and I started to lash out at people that were the closest to me. And I said, this is not right, and I got to do something about it. And so I went and took it upon myself to seek therapy, to see someone, to say, I just don't feel right, and I know why. I know that I'm going through this struggle. I need some help. And so what I did was I was very conscious about the type of therapist that I wanted to see, because I wanted someone that was going to not just talk to me, which is fine for some folks, but I need somebody that was going to assign me work and allow me to physically work through some things. So in other words, I'm very task oriented. So I need things to check off. And so she was really good at assigning me work and assigning me things that I needed to do. But the point is that when you have those signs and you recognize that something's not right, listen to yourself, listen to people that are around you, that are close to you, and that can really validate, hey, something's just not right. You need to do something about it. And so recognize that, internalize it, listen to other folks, do what you need to do. And so whether it's burnout or anxiety, depression, any of those things, make sure you take care of yourself and listen to those signs.
Yeah, I think we've said it in a previous episode. Everybody could use a good therapist. And it's relatable what you said in terms of that having a tragedy in your life, because
Yeah.
I went through the same similar thing and I
Yeah.
literally spiraled out of control.
Yeah.
This was a few years ago and I was just spiraling and I was lashing out. And so
Yes.
my partner came to me and said, listen, you need to go and see somebody. You need to
Yes.
talk this out. You need to
Yes,
come
sir.
out of this, because he could recognize that I was spiraling out of control, that I was going deeper and deeper into a depression. And
Yep.
it wasn't, and I didn't even realize it
Yeah.
until he said that to me.
Yeah.
So then I went and sought therapy, and it
Mhm.
literally was one of the best things that I could
Yeah.
have done at that point, because having that non-biased sounding board to
Yep.
help pull me out of that
That's right.
was key. And so, like I am not one who's afraid of saying, listen, I still have a therapist and I see my therapist at least every month or every other
Yes.
month. So
Yeah.
just to help get things out of my head. So because,
Yes.
still going through this journey, there's still a lot of stuff that I still sometimes wake up and have those doubts and those fears.
That's right.
And so having that therapist to kind of help talk me out of that, and like you said, giving you assignments to do this or do that,
Yes.
is very, very, very key. So can very much relate to that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, with self-care, it's kind of presenting your best self to the world,
Mhm.
right? And you're
Mhm.
you're setting yourself up for success because you are taking that time to do that self-reflection and again be vulnerable, right? Seeking therapy puts you in a place of vulnerability, opening yourself up to feelings and all the sorts to get you through to your next chapter.
Yeah. And I think the other part of that too, I mean, it doesn't have to be anything that is clinically or mental
Yeah.
depression, but it can also be things that just makes you feel good. So I'll give y'all an example. So there was a few years ago, my wife said, hey, we're going to go get some pedicures. And I was like, oh, man, I don't need to get no pedicure. What is this? Keisha, I loved it. Let me tell you, loved it. And so now, my wife and I we'll make like a date night, and we'll go and get pedicures. And so it's funny because now my son gets in on the game. Hey, y'all gonna get y'all feet done? I want to go. And so it's all three of us lined up, and we're all getting pedicures. So it's not all about real heavy stuff, but it's about those things that make you feel good, put you in a good space, makes you feel good, happy, and content. So that's part of it too. Just taking care of yourself.
Listen, we all love a good mani-pedi.
Mani-pedi, that's it.
There is something about sitting in that chair and letting somebody work on your rub your feet. That is very relaxing. And even getting your nails done, it's like, okay, yeah, it is that self-care that is very important.
It's important, and whatever it is, it doesn't have to be pedicures, manicures, but whatever makes you feel good, maybe working out or working in the yard, whatever. Yeah. Do those things. That's part of making sure you get back to you and resetting yourself. So that's a part of it.
Yeah, my Zen moment is working. Go ahead, Keisha. No, go ahead.
No, sorry. For me, like self-care, it's just, just kind of those small things. So what I've learned to do at a certain time, I just turn my phone off. When I know that family, everyone's home, disconnecting from the social media, from the text messages, from the phone calls, just, disconnecting from everything and allowing, just me to sit and
me time.
Exactly. So
it's important.
Yeah, self-care is so important.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, Ken, I think I interrupted you earlier.
No, I was just saying my Zen moment was is like Khary mentioned, doing work in the yard. Like I never had a green thumb, but once I started doing it, it is like a passion of mine. As a matter of fact, this weekend I'm going to be planting some stuff in the garden as well, working on putting some color in the garden.
Yes, sir. I see you got plants in the background. I see those plants. I see them. I see you doing it.
Oh, well, that's not even half of them. I have so many more. I get comments all the time. I have these beautiful big elephant ears that I planted last year in the front of my house, and they literally get like 10, 12 feet tall. And I'm like, I sit back and I look at them and I'm like, it's just my Zen moment. The yard is my Zen moment. Yeah.
We all have to have it. We all have to do it.
So that takes us into our next topic, celebrating small wins to foster positive momentum.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think, we talked about the journey and the end part, but I think along the way, you gotta take time to celebrate the little wins. It doesn't necessarily need to be something that is very monumental or overly magnanimous. It's just something that along the way you say, hey, you know what? I washed my clothes today. I did some laundry today. I got some stuff done. And like I said, I'm one of those folks that need to check things off so I can feel like I've accomplished something. I feel validated. And you know what? Hey, today I went out for a walk today, and that was on my to-do list, and I'm glad. That's a win. That's something that we all need to feel like we're accomplishing something. We all need to feel like we are a part of something. We all need to feel like we have purpose. And I think a lot, and this is just me talking, I think a lot of what happened during COVID, there was so much depression, and we just didn't know. We were thrown off of our routine. And I think a lot of it is we just need to feel like we are achieving something. For some folks during COVID, just getting out of the bed, that was a win. You know what I mean? So
putting on clothes.
Right. Just getting up was a win. So I think we need to embrace that and celebrate those wins, those little victories as they come around, and not make light of it. I mean, some of us, like I said before, we're in different places. We're in different places of our journey. We're in different places of our career, regardless of what it is. And I know I was making light of it, a little earlier, but we need to celebrate those victories because I think those little victories can spawn into medium-sized victories, which can spawn into large victories. And
Yes.
so I think it becomes contagious. And so what I'm asking folks to recognize is start small, in with the big ones, celebrate them along the way. And
Yeah,
that's what it's really all
absolutely.
about. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
I think
Yeah.
that's a very good point, considering the climate that we're in right now.
Mm. Hmm.
Feeling accomplished and setting goals for yourself and celebrating when you make those accomplishments is so important.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I
So,
think one of the quotes that that's in the ebook from this from this section is you say the very act of confronting your fear of success
Hmm.
signals a profound shift
Yeah.
towards authenticity and
Yes.
purpose-driven leadership. And I
Yeah.
think that was it was a very key point of of closing out your ebook on this part three.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is it. And we talked about how we want to feel like we make a difference. We want to feel
mm,
like we matter. We want to feel like we have impact on those around us. And so I think a big part of that is figuring out how you can make a difference, how you can add
Yeah.
value, what that difference means to you and to others, and just acting upon it in a positive way.
Yes.
Being purposely driven in a way, and that means a lot of different things to a lot of people. But I think at the end of the day is that positive light and just being able to provide that to others, recognize how you get your light to shine. I'm not saying doing things to be braggadocious or anything like that, but do things that are meaningful,
Yeah.
um, and really figure out how you can help other people. That's really what this is all about.
Yeah.
Because success is not an isolated event. There are other people that are around you that impacted your success. There are other people that are rooting for you. There are other people that made sacrifices for you to be where you are.
Yeah.
And so you need to recognize that and acknowledge them, but also help the other people out along the way as well. So it is a we talk about full circle moments. It's one of those things that the more that you get successful, the more that you indirectly are recognizing that you can help other people out as well. And
Yeah.
it's not just about me. It's not about Khary. It's not about Kisha. It's not about Ken. It's about everybody that is in your circle that you're helping, that are helping other people that are outside your circle. And so that's where all of this is. It's just really just trying to get to the heart of is success is about helping other people as well.
Yeah. So, that we're at the end of like part three, which of the ebook series. So my question to you is,
Yes,
what's
sir.
next? So we're going to share the link to your profile so that people can
Yes, sir.
check out and read through the entire three-part series.
Hmm.
But what's next for you? I mean, you published this just for everybody to see, but
Hmm.
what's the next step in this evolution?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you asked. I'm actually working on a new series right now. It'll be released in a few weeks later on this summer, and it's called "The Unpopularity of Leadership." And "un" is
Oh,
in parentheses. So, really, just speaking to how, as leaders, we make decisions that can be at times very unpopular. A
yeah.
lot of times we feel isolated, we feel alone. And how can you overcome as a leader, recognizing that the decisions you make not only impacts others, but impacts yourself? And how do you feel okay about that? And so we're going to talk a little bit about what that means and provide you with some tools and some tips to make sure that that's okay for you and for other people.
Well, we will definitely be having you back on once that's
Okay,
published
okay.
because you
Anytime, man.
inspire me,
Anytime.
so we'll have you back on because yeah, I'd love to dig deeper into that ebook as well. So,
Sure.
you know,
Absolutely.
Kari, thank you. I mean, really appreciate you coming on and walking us through each part of your ebook, The Fear of Success. There's real depth to what you've written and how you've shared it today. So your perspective on fear, growth, and what success truly means is incredibly powerful. And I know it's going to resonate with so many people out there who are quietly wrestling with the same ideas. So yeah, thank you for coming on and sharing that.
Thank you so much.
absolutely. Absolutely. To our listeners and viewers, if anything in today's conversation sparked something in you, we highly encourage you to check out Kari's ebook on LinkedIn. Drop your questions or thoughts in the comments. We're always happy to keep the conversation going. And most importantly, don't be afraid to rethink your definition of success.
Absolutely. Khary, thank you again. And thanks everybody for tuning in. Until next time, stay curious, stay honest, and always keep growing. Ciao.
All
Thanks for
right. Thank
joining us.
y'all. Appreciate y'all. Thank you so much.
Bye.